Hello and welcome to a new episode of Chaos im Kopf, the coaching podcast with me, Caro. It's in English, as you can hear with my German accent, because I'm not alone here today. I have a wonderful interview partner, my dear friend Amit, who is a somatic body worker and is very trauma informed in her way how she is navigating, helping people. And it's no surprise that this episode is dedicated to helping anyone that might feel dysregulated currently with the times. As everyone heard, there's war happening in Israel. I have friends and family there. I have been a wreck in the last 2 weeks. I basically started numbing myself. I started to watch Netflix. I even started to drink alcohol again. I did everything because I felt I had so many emotions of terror, of sadness, of worry inside my body, and I couldn't handle. And I wanted to somehow also co-suffer with all my friends in Israel. But now, after 2 weeks, I watch myself and I notice it's not the most healthy approach to potentially dealing with this suffering in the world. And this podcast episode is dedicated to hopefully offering us, you and me, tools how we can regulate ourselves in times of terror and war and stress. This is nothing we are normally used to dealing with. A little important disclaimer: this podcast episode does not substitute working with a therapist. All right, let's start right in. And I invited my wonderful friend Amit because she has been my savior. She really helped me with her little impulses, how she sees life, how she deals with navigating all this time for herself. And I hope she can be as a big inspiration she was to me, to you. And now I don't want to put all the words into Amit's head. And oh my God, my English, you know what I mean? I would love, Amit, just introduce yourself. Tell us how you're working, who you are, what you're focusing on in your work.
Wow, I'm really happy to be here. Thank you for having me. Also very excited, which is a very new sensations for the past couple of weeks to just be excited about something, which is something maybe we'll touch in it a bit more deeply towards our conversation. But I'm Amit Zilberberg. I speak to you from Yafo, Israel. I'm a yoga therapist, and I've been practicing the past couple of years many tools that are related into trauma healing and trauma work, including somatic experiencing and focusing method, that both work with the felt sense and generally help us regulate ourselves through the understanding of the way our nervous system and our brain works. And apart from that, I'm also an artist. I'm a jeweler. And actually, funnily enough, I've been spending the past 3.5 months in Mexico creating my first jewelry collection, which is now stored back back inside, as it's really not relevant these days. But there's also this branch of activity in my life, which I also very much nourished by, and also very much see the connection of the creative force and the healing healing method or healing from trauma. Yeah, I think that's it. I work also with women with chronic pain. This is my specification within the yoga therapy world. But now, as I see it in Israel, at least, I feel like the tools that I've been studying and practicing for the past few years are very, very relevant, I think, for people that not suffering from chronic pain, but just everyone in general that's being exposed to this extreme situation that we're living. So I'm very, very happy to be here.
Thank you. You are to me such an inspiration. I would love to dive right deep in, because I have noticed a lot of shame and overwhelm how I dealt with what's happening right now, because I was so much in shock, and I noticed I don't even have coping strategies to deal with. How do you deal with death, with war, with your security being so threatened, with family and friends impacted? I noticed that it completely kicked me out of my body. I was basically just floating around in my head. I was worrying. I didn't even feel like it's safe or even in a way okay to just be in my body and enjoy life right now, when I know that so many people are suffering. And I even noticed that I felt a certain feeling of shame for having fun and pleasure and living in a currently still peaceful country, Germany, while there is so much suffering happening in the world. And then I also noticed that it doesn't serve anyone, though, when I am in this cycle of completely spin out. And I just noticed I was overwhelmed with dealing with it. I was numbing myself. I was worrying a lot. I wasn't in my body. And yeah, I would love for you to share a little bit your perspective on how the mindset can be when you are dysregulated from in times like these, and if it's okay to numb yourself or not, and just a little bit your perspective on kind of dealing with situations like war.
Yeah. It's just this last sentence. I don't think any of us could ever, like, not ever, but like anticipate this kind of situation. And I think this is something very special to situations of threat. We couldn't anticipate the fact that it's going to happen. And even if we did, we couldn't choose the response that our system found beneficial to protect us. So this is the first thing maybe I would like to put out there and normalize, because the response to threat are automatically and autonomically evaluating, like happening in the body. So it's not like there was a moment that you chose to numb yourself. The system went there because that seemed to be the most beneficial thing to do in the situation. Maybe it have been, because it is a lot to take in. There is a lot to take in right now, and the system just operates in a way, and it's unique for everyone, right? So some people would go to, I see it here in Israel, some people went to extreme activism of like just jumping in the car and going to the places where the war is happening, either joining the fight or helping to, people were dealing with it in many different ways. Some people were like obsessed with reading the news all the time. Some people were just like completely numbing themselves. So every option or everything we chose to be doing that felt safe for the system is normal. Like, we don't have the control over the initial response that our nervous system finds to be beneficial. So I think recognizing the fact that this is something I want to also illuminate, the fact that you were recognizing at some point that this is what you were doing, this is a lot. So this would be the first step, actually, just to be recognizing, oh, okay, I have now chose, or like I haven't choose it consciously, but this is what I'm doing. I'm numbing myself doing this and that. And that could be, a bunch of other stuff as well. So first of all, noticing, learning to pay attention to the mechanism, or like to the way we are affected by it. And I would also like to, I know that we're speaking to, like, speaking English, not necessarily people that have been directly affected by this events are listening to us, but I just want to also put out that it's very different if we've been affected directly. So if like the people in our close circles or people that we know have been somehow directly affected to it, so either murdered or kidnapped or injured or fighting right now, I think this would be like requiring some kind of different attention. But if we're talking about being like in a second or third circle, that is just knowing that there are people that that are now in a potential threat, or like in a potential danger, this is something that is just a different operating. It's just a different thing to do. So once we working with people, or like when I've been working with people the past couple of weeks, so it's just something that it's really important to identify whether you've been affected directly. We all been affected, right? Also, so I think something very interesting about the nervous system is that it's just an echoing system, where it's for me, what I see these days is just how much our nervous system is what unifies us, because we all of us, like, there's no one person that his nervous system haven't been affected by it. And once you learn to befriend the nervous system and learning how to recognize and work with whatever it is that comes up, you can regain the ability to respond. And I think regaining the ability to respond is something that is just very important, because it takes us out of the loop of either numbness or being in the freeze state that was very just a commonly it's one of the most common responses once we don't have the ability to fight, or you don't have the ability to flee, right? You're far, like you're in Berlin, you couldn't fight and you couldn't flee because it wasn't about that, so you could just go and numb yourself. So regaining the ability to respond, which brought you to back into recording this podcast, for example, this kind, some kind of action, some kind of being active. Yeah, I think this is what we want to come back to. Now, what I've been noticing about myself is that this situation comes in waves. It comes and it goes. So there's a wave of sadness, of grief, of horror, of terror, of fear, and you know, it can also go away, and we can create small capsules or small moments of relative safety, and finding ways of comfort, finding small ways or small moments when we can give ourselves comfort. And then this sense of terror or rage or fear or whatever emotional response that is occurring within us is not constant. You know, it can come and it can go away, and we can and so what we want to create basically is the ability to create small containers of safety, which we might learn also in this podcast how to do.
Oh, I love that. You know, in German, there is a word called Weltschmerz. It's basically translated to feeling the pain of the world. And I feel like I was basically suffering, like just sitting in this feeling of Weltschmerz, this pain, this feeling of like, wow, the world is suffering and I'm suffering with it. And I was totally in freeze. I was at home. I was just lying on the bed. I was super exhausted. I could barely move. If I just asked myself, what do I actually want to do right now? The answer most time was just to lie down and stare at the wall. And I also noticed that this feeling of safety in the world got completely attacked. I really felt like, wow, how safe are we still in this world right now? How it's developing, you know? Also, we've been navigating so much already. There was the pandemic, there was Corona, the Ukrainian war. Now in Israel, there's war. It's so much to deal and cope with. And I noticed that I was also afraid to actually go down all these spirals of thoughts and feelings, because I was afraid also to feel all the sadness. I was afraid to actually think my thoughts to the bitter end. What is really happening in Israel, how affected the people there are, all the suffering, and what it also means for how safe I am in this world and will be in this world. And I had a little moment, a little container of peace, you could say, just now when I went to the park and the sun was shining, the autumn leaves were around us, ladybugs started to sit on our jacket. And I thought, wow, currently, just this moment, this snapshot right here, it's actually a little capsule, a little island of peace. But then at the same time, I also felt this guilt or this, I don't know, this shame of like, can I actually allow myself just to enjoy this pleasure in the moment or not? So maybe let's talk about how to create these little islands of peace in a way that, I don't know, also feels like it's okay for us to do this, you know?
This is another thing I want to like. We call it like the shame of the survivals. So the shame of being the one that survived or the one that is not affected. How can I be okay when the world is clearly not okay? And first of all, it's just recognizing that to give it the title of, okay, I'm noticing that I experience shame towards the possibility for me to be fine right now. And I don't know, what's been helpful for me is just to think about times when I was in crisis, times when it felt really that my world collapsed, and before I had the tools that I'm using now daily and hourly, like literally on an hourly basis, I use these tools to regulate myself. And I think of what I needed back then when I was really in crisis in my life. And what I needed was a person that was calm and regulated and could be there for me. And when I think that, and I notice that, even right now, even in this midst of crisis, I have the tools to be this person for someone else. And eventually that the tools that supports me are allowing me to be of support, and the world really needs supports. Like the world, people, all we need is compassion, and all we need is this, like, allowing the opposite within ourselves, first. When we let the fear and the helplessness to overcome, we're it's actually taking away our ability to radiate or to act upon other stuff that are actually needed. Like what is needed right now is not more people that are in fear, in helplessness, though it's completely natural that we go there, right? It's not under our control, but once we recognize it and we it's like having a reminder, oh, I do have another choice. I don't have to be engaging to stay in this situation. It's fine that I'm here and all I want is just to lay on the bed and stare on the wall. It's fine. But once I am ready, there is another option, and there is something I can do in order to help myself so I can be of support to other people. And I think, so it's really also important to remember that our system all the time takes cues from the environment. Okay, all the time. Our vagus nerve, I don't know how deeply we can go into it, and also what's the mental capacity of the people that are listening now, what's the mental capacity we have to learn. But basically our system all the time takes cues from the environment just to check, and from within the body just to check if it's safe or if it's unsafe. Okay, as clearly as that. And our system is a lot more sensitive for cues of danger rather it is for cues of safety, because it's this machine, our physical body, only want to protect ourselves. We only want to protect ourselves. So in order to protect ourselves, we should be able to recognize when it's not safe. And so the system all the time scans and within the body signs of safety. So if we have our heart beating fast, and we have the breath shallow, so the body is taking the sign that it is not safe. Okay, and it's looking for stuff from the outside that is it safe or is it not safe? So what we want to be creating, if we are right now safe, is really taking in cues of safety from the environment. And this would be maybe the first tool that I could give right now. And it's a very somatic experiencing tool for regulating. And is it to look around in the room where you are, or even if you're biking around, careful, or driving, but you can still look around carefully. And if you're very dysregulated, if you're really feeling this anxiousness or this numbness or anything, choose one color, shape, or texture, and count at least 10 objects of this color, shape, or texture. Okay, so you look around, really move your head around, move your neck, move your eyes, and allow your system to take in at least 10 objects or whatever it is of a certain shape, texture, or color. And take your time. And once you're done, just notice what happens. So I do it every time I'm on my phone and I've been reading something either on social media, or like I really, really try avoiding the news, but also in a WhatsApp group, whatever it is, if I feel that I've consumed something that affected my system, I put my phone down, I look around the room, and I choose something to count on, literally. And you can share, Caro, how is it for you right now too? I see that you're doing it, so you can also share with us how it is for you.
I'm surprised how many orange objects I did find in my quite black and white kitchen. And by texture, you mean, for example, everything you see paper-wise,
yeah,
or every glass
or like every
object
exactly,
you see? Okay.
exactly. Well, you can choose one of them.
Yeah, it is very calming, also because it is an exercise for your mind in a way. It still requires some attention, And you definitely get just relaxed because it makes you focus on the microcosm and makes you forget about this macrocosm you're in.
Yeah. Yeah. And apart from that, it's also activating the frontal neocortex, like the frontal cortex, the neocortex, the like operating system of the brain, because we're counting, we're looking at objects that are concrete, that are there. And if we're having like engaging in loops of thoughts, for example, as you've been describing, or loops of worrying that is also engaging in the prefrontal cortex, then just focusing your awareness on something that is happening here and now in the room, which is also a cue of safety for our system, then it's really helping to, it might be helpful to break this pattern of, engaging with thoughts that are downward spiral.
It's interesting because while I do this exercise, I also do notice that it brings me more back into the moment and into my body. But then I actually don't like the sensations I feel because I still feel a lot of anxiety inside myself.
Yeah. Yeah. And recognizing it would always be the first, always be the first thing to do. Recognizing, okay, I noticed that once I come back into my body, I feel anxious. And that completely, of course, you don't want to feel that, and you do whatever in your ability to avoid that. So the next thing we would want to do is to, when there's high level of anxiety. So I'm just like, I'm just going into the practicing with you because this is what you're experiencing right now. So I don't see much of use just to talk about it, rather just experiencing it. So if we feel like the level of anxiety, the level of anxiousness or anxiety in our body is really high, we can go right away to the butterfly tap. We take our hands forward, can wiggle the fingers just as I do, and then we cross them over our chest. Okay, and you can just take a moment to just notice the sensation of your hands on your shoulders. You can squeeze them a little bit, and you can feel the way your feet are touching the floor, your pelvis, your back is touching the chair that you're sitting on. And then we start tapping, okay, just like alternating every time a different hand. In your own rhythm. Notice the breath, really good. And after around 25 tapping, you can stop. And notice what happens now.
I'm surprised to admit that I feel much better in my body already. I'm admitting I was a little bit. I didn't expect it to have such a big effect so fast. And it brings me back to a moment I had yesterday where I was also giving myself a hug. I was part of a workshop. And then while I was hugging myself, I could really feel that there was this part inside of myself, this little young part that was just scared about everything that happened in the world, that was actually felt totally lost, that my coping strategy was to take off with my mind. And it felt like the parents have left the house, they have abandoned the ship, but this little girl inside was still there, and it just wanted to be calmed down and cared for. And this technique really reminds me of soothing this part inside of yourself that just wants you to be there for you.
Exactly. Yeah, and take a moment just to recognize what comes up as you say that. What do you feel right now?
I feel this part that is like, finally, you got it. I've been hanging in here for 2 weeks and you've been just watching Netflix and drinking alcohol to numb yourself. I was scared. I needed someone to calm me down. Yeah, and it's very nice to understand the agency that you can give it yourself too.
Exactly. Exactly. And taking the time to notice how it is when you give it yourself, when you give it to yourself, what sensation does this have?
Very soothing, very calming.
Yeah.
Very simple.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And, if we would diving into a session now, I would ask you, and this is something you and everyone who's listening can do for themselves, but really explore this kind of sensation of safety, of how does it feel? How do I know that this feels safe? What does it feel like? What color does it have? Where is it in the body? And really, really letting the body absorb the feeling of safety, of relative safety, right? And taking all the time that you need in order to really feel into it. It's really important.
So interesting. I really noticed that it really takes discipline because my mind is not used to actually embodying safety and just sitting with it. My mind is so used to, okay, I close my eyes now and I felt it for a second. What's up next? What can I think and worry about? What can I do? So this is actually a bit shocking to see how my automatic response is not to just sit anymore with myself and just be with myself.
Yeah, but it's also really important to remember that our body is built to recognize the threat, and it takes 10 times more of literally time, like 10 times longer for the body to recognize and embody, or like really accept a feeling of safety or something that is pleasant or nice. It takes 10 times longer than recognizing and acting upon something that is feeling danger or threatful. Okay, so it's not just like you, Carole, and your psyche and your individual mind. It's something we all share. It's all of our systems. Like the threat is like enlightens everything. Imagine like I don't know, light bulbs. A chain of light bulbs that once there's a moment of threat, all of them go right on at the same time. And if you want to turn them off, you need to go light bulb by light bulb and unscrew them, and turn them off. But they will all go on in an inch of a second. They all go on really rapidly, but it takes 10 times longer to turn them off. You go one by one and you turn them off. So once we recognize that the feeling of anxiousness or fear or worrying or something that's so big in the body that is uncontainable, we want to go to create this level of safety that allows us to go the next step, okay, of the exercise, of the tools, would be to go step by step, or like sensation by sensation, and notice it. When it feels like it's too big, it's overwhelming, it's all at once, we shut down. Okay, that's a normal response. So we want to pendulate. We want to, first of all, create a certain amount of relative safety, which allows us to afterwards go back and go sensation by sensation. So basically, our sensations is the way of our system. Okay, when I say system, I mean the combination of body and mind, or like the nervous system. For me, it's the connecting of the two. It's the sensations are the way for our system to communicate with us what we feel. Okay, so the feeling, it could be like, very wide or very something, but once we recognize the way it's being expressed in the body, it helps us to address it in a way that is containable, because the body is physical, it has the edges of it, it has it's there, you can touch it, you can feel it, you can, and the felt sense is really, really amazing in its capacity to hold this it's like a physical sensation that holds an emotional meaning or an emotional context. So we want to be going, and we can also do it with one sensation at the time. So if we feel like all the body is really like that, I feel my heartbeat, I feel my breath, I feel my limbs, or like my hands that are constricted, I choose one. Okay, I go one by one, And we want to learn to recognize the body's natural way of discharging, which are a natural deep breath, a yawn, tingling in the limbs or in the edges of the body, gurgling in the stomach, tears or laughter. It could sometimes be burping, and goosebumps. Okay, those ways are the ways that our system goes naturally, because our body is also, of course, it's have this all the system of like recognizing threat and responding to threat, but it also equipped with the system of discharging the stress. Yes, of discharging the stress that is caused by this automatic response of fight, flight, or freeze. Okay, or faint if we're really going into deep of the four. But so there's a lot of energy that is being that is just flushing the system once there's this sense of threat. And the sense of threat could be by reading a WhatsApp message or just by reading the news. It doesn't have to be an actual threat of our lives, because the system is very sensitive. And it also equipped with the ability to discharge the energy that the stress is causing. Okay, and the discharges are what we just mentioned. You could also put it in the like in the caption of the podcast, so people can have it in front of them. And recognizing if I do those exercises and suddenly I notice a yawn coming up. So I want to really yawn generously with all the body and allow the energy to be discharged. Or if there's like a gurgling in the stomach that many people many times are like a bit ashamed of or something like it, we want to give those kind of representation of discharges to really give it all the time that they need to discharge the energy. And I think for many people also shaking is really is something that is really natural, but we are afraid of it, or it feels weird, or we are afraid that it looks weird, so we're holding the shake. But the shaking really, like physically shaking, it's actually a discharge. So if we notice that this is something that comes up in the body, we want to give it all the time that it needs to finish the movement, or like to let the energy discharge, basically.
So let me sum up and translate what I think I understood. It's that
Yes.
when you notice that you are dysregulated, first thing is just to notice it and to acknowledge it. Then you can either look around the room and start to count objects of the color, shape, or texture, just to give yourself the first sense of safety in your current surrounding. Afterwards, or even doesn't need to be connected, but you can do the butterfly hug to kind of really create this embodied safety. And from this safety, you can actually feel what is really inside of yourself, which emotions, what physical imprint that wants to discharge. And the moment you probably feel into it, there is a chance that your body will automatically start to yawn, start to shake, start to all the kinds of discharging techniques the body has kind of in, oh my God, English, programmed. And you really want to give it the space to do so. You don't want to suppress a yawn. You don't want to suppress a shake. It's actually something that I really started to do a lot. This shaking thing really seems to be my body's way. I also feel like I'm part squirrel, part rabbit in a former life. And my body shakes a lot, and I'm not suppressing it anymore. I just let it shake out. And it's nothing I wouldn't have done if I wouldn't know about somatic work before, because otherwise I would have completely suppressed the shake. I would have completely think it's weird that my whole body is trembling shortly or that I'm shaking. But afterwards, it does always feel like you open the ventil for some pressure to go out of your system.
Yeah. Exactly. So thank you for summarizing and making it more organized. And also I will add grounding. So it was something that's like, it was like a small instruction I gave before we did the butterfly hug, but it's something we can really do all the time. The feet on the ground, or the legs on the chair, or the back on the chair. Notice the support you're already being provided, the support that is already there. and just notice right now in your body which part feels most supported. Sure, if you want.
Definitely where I'm sitting on the
Yeah,
chair, the
yeah,
hips, the
yeah.
legs.
Very good. So, and it's a question we can ask ourselves, like, during the times that we feel like we need support, because we're already supported by something, even if it's our feet on the floor, if the ground beneath our feet is already there supporting us. And there's also something about this grounding activity that helps us to come back to the fact that we are actually right here, right now. And I've been, working and reading and listening to how do you call it? Not evidence, but people that survived the recent chaos of the 7th of October, and people that really shared that what happened to them while they were in hiding, while they were protecting themselves, is to notice the support they're already being provided with. And it's really something that can be done afterwards, or for every one of us that needs it right now. But it's also something that people used during the event, and it really, really helped them operate in the best way they could, to survive and to save themselves. So this is like tools that are really, really really, really important, because we don't have the capacity to contain all of this. And this is why we shut down and get numb, because it's a lot. It's a lot to bear the unbearable. But we can do it in beats and pieces. So once we go into the sensations, we don't go to all the sensations in the body all at once. We go one sensation at a time until the energy is discharged. And we want to feel, how does it feel afterwards, after the discharge. And it's like, now I do it, it's like brushing the teeth. For me, I brush my nervous system before I go to sleep, because I want to wake up tomorrow in a way that I can be of support to other people. So I really take responsibility on the way I can discharge myself from my own, of course, worrying and anxiety, fear, and noticing it comes in waves. And once I let it go, like once I let the wave complete its movement, it goes back away. The tide, it's not constantly pouring over. It goes back, and then I have a moment of safety. I notice that. How does it feel that I know that I'm safe right now? I'm being really grateful for that. And then once the next wave of anxiety, fear, worrying, whatever it is comes up, I know that it will go away. So recognizing the natural pattern of those kind of things, emotions to come, overflow, and then go away. And once they overflow and I go back into my head, I go into this the spiral, the downward spiral of the thoughts of it's also, I have to say, for all of us that read the news, that had social media, or being engaging in watching videos or things that are run right now, the hormones that are released in the body once we watch and consume these kind of things are very, very addictive. So it's natural if we feel like it's hard for us to put this device away, because we feel like we need this rush of adrenaline. Also, as you said, like just to be part of what's going on, if I'm not anxious while everyone is, so I'm out of the situation. I'm not like there with my loved ones, or just with the world. And also just the notion that it is very, very addictive. It is very hard to stop. And that's it's even if we watched something, or even if we read something, we still have the energy and the ability to discharge it from our system.
Amit, thank you so much. It's really important. What I really take from your teachings is this humbling recognition that in the end, we are a body. Because many times we give our mind and our thoughts so much room and so much space and so much importance that we can quite arrogantly forget that, well, most of us is a big container of walking body that needs and wants to feel safe. And many times I have this fallacy of thinking that thinking will be the better way, but actually grounding yourself in the body is in the end so much more helpful, because then my thinking also relaxes and I can actually start to think, okay, what is serving me or anyone else right now? So what happened to me? And I'm talking always about myself because I don't want to impose how anyone else is feeling. And maybe it helps you when you're listening, because you can identify what happened for me was I was pretty dysregulated and numb for the past 2 weeks. And then I saw myself from a meta perspective and I thought, okay, Caro, it's enough. For 2 weeks, you've been now in the bed, you looked around the room, you were in your thoughts, you were numbing yourself, but it's enough. Time to get back into your body, time to actually be inside of yourself again and to be of service in whatever small way you can be. Whether it's, in my case, to ask Amit to record a podcast with me so we can share some tools how to get back into the body, whether it is being there for a friend who's currently in need and shock, whether it's just, supporting in whatever way you can. And I think that's the biggest thought reframe, to actually have empathy for the times when you are in an automatic numbing or freezing or whatever mode. But then to also understand that, okay, now I can take some agency again, create safety within myself. And it's actually not a selfish act. It's actually a serving act. And it's not just good for yourself, it's good for the people around you too. Amit, maybe now, because we already talked so much and I can talk until the end of the day with you. Is there any other technique or even thought or even message you want to share?
I think a thought that comes up that I feel it a lot going on within me these days, when there's so much grief and so much death around, and I don't know, within the population of Israel, it's like everyone knows someone that was killed, that died, that was affected by it, and there's a lot of grief right now. And I feel that for me, what helps, apart from being there and feeling the grief and all the techniques that we spoke about, is connecting with small moments of life, within myself, and small moments that I can be witness that I am alive right now, and how much that is not for granted. So it's really in small moments of livelihood. I don't know if that's even a word, but as you said about walking in the park, I'm sitting right now, I feel the air on my body, I feel the livelihood, I know that I am alive, and I want to be connecting with the life force within me as much as I can, because that life force is also the force that was within yourself that told you, okay, Carole, you're enough in this situation, you're ready to do something that is different, so this is the life force that I'm trying to connect to really on an hourly basis or whenever I need it. And this is something that I also feel that could be, apart from all the exercise and the tools and stuff, just noticing that there is a life force within yourself right now. The beating heart, the breath, the ability to recognize beauty, it's all still there. And I've been reading a lot. I've been, trying to consume knowledge from people that were witnessing horrors or like being in times of chaos in the Holocaust, and reading that this ability to connecting with the life force within ourselves right now, whether it's moving the body, putting a clothes that we like, eating something that is nourishing, whatever it is that reminds us that we are alive right now, and that's not for granted at all. That really something that can help us also, even if for a tiny bit, bring this kind of soothing sensation of yes, I have this ability, I'm alive.
So beautiful. Amitle, how can people work with you?
So I was, surprised myself to see how well these tools are working via Zoom. Also, my training, I did it on Zoom, and this is why I usually prefer to work in person, but these days I'm definitely offering Zoom sessions. So we can put, just on the podcast, we can put my website there, and you can connect me with email or WhatsApp message, and if you want to hear more about what I do now. So can just be in touch.
Perfect. Yes. So you will get the links to Amit in the show notes. She's an amazing somatic body worker. If you feel like, if you're in this phase where you notice, okay, I've been in a spin out and I actually want to get back into my body, and I want to be also guided in the beginning, because it's really hard also to guide yourself in these moments, you can reach out to Amit. She can offer Zoom sessions wherever you are. They probably like, I guess, an hour or 1.5 hours, like a coaching session long. And yes. I hope this podcast was a little reminder for yourself that it's totally understandable if you've been frozen or numb, or if you didn't know better how to deal with the situation. But if there is this part inside of you that notices, okay, it's time to get back into the body, because we are the body and it's important to feel safe within ourselves. And there are some very simple, very, very small tools you can practice every day when you notice that you've been dysregulated again because you read the news or you heard a terrible terrible story about a loved one. Then I hope this was a little inspiration for you and you can take it with you in your everyday life. Amit, thank you so much for being here with me.
Thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me. It's always just a pleasure to be in conversation with you. So I'm happy we could share that with more people. Thank you.
Thank you. Now I send love out to anyone who's listening. I send love out to anyone who is affected directly or indirectly by the war. And I hope you find a little container of peace today, however this may be. Sending all my love and blessings. Thank you for tuning in.